The final question in all of this mess, how is all of this connected to the Silent Hill universe, can now be answered, and it comes confirmed from one person we'd least suspected from. Welcome to the Riot Stream, and I'm about to explain to you how Jacob Novak just absolutely saved whatever semblance of a plot line the Silent Hill universe had by running his mouth just a little too much.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Folks, welcome to the Riot Stream. My name is Big Iron Riot. Here I talk about everything that is of interest to me, and as of late, Silent Hill has come back into play because there's been just an armada of games to be released and things like that. Definitely exciting for a Silent Hill fan such as myself, but there was also a few concerns. After nearly a 10-year wait, we finally got the Silent Hill transmission that released a few different trailers for a few different Silent Hill projects, all of which had a strange look to them that almost came off as different studios are making them. Come to find out there were. It was nice to see, but we obviously got a different take each and every one of these things. However, the question still remained, and for the more purist of fans, the remaining question was, what does this have to do with the previous Silent Hill? We weren't looking for things that were directly connected, unless you were looking for a remake in which you were looking for things directly connected. But we were looking for some way to be able to tell that this was in fact a Silent Hill game based on looks, visuals, and lore. Instead, we got artistic processes and rendering and things that were off the beaten path, things that were so different we didn't know how to respond to them. We did not know if they were actually truly Silent Hill games. Some of us even said they are not true Silent Hill games. The rest of the fan base either did one of two things: either turned against their current fan base and got mad and said be grateful, or they joined in and said, yeah, sure, yeah, this isn't Silent Hill. Or some of them even said, I like the new direction everything went in. But here was the main takeaway from it all: we were all divided. But that same question lingered above all three of our heads, all three groups' heads, rather, and that was the connection between it all. Are we just making a brand new game with brand new rules, brand new lore? Is this an alternate universe? How are we doing this? It's like coming up with a new Spider-Man story, but having no sign of being a spider, or no sign of being bit by a spider, and no sign of being a superhero. Well, then what does this have to do with being Spider-Man? We could not figure it out. We could not put it together. And then this happened. While playing Silent Hill: The Last Message in Chapter 2, you come across a newspaper article that changes the tide of how this is narratively written. And just to kind of give you guys a little context, the newspaper is called The Silent Hill Phenomenon. It says the suicide rate has increased around the world in large part due to the struggles brought on by COVID-19 pandemic, with countries still unsure how to best handle the issue. These trying times have also given rise to a strange phenomenon in many areas. Those affected suddenly claim to see fog, even on fair weather days, and lose consciousness shortly after. This has come to be known as the Silent Hill phenomenon, named after a similar event that occurred in the eponymous U.S. town. The first to propose a theory explaining why this could be happening is Dr. Unknown, redacted, whatever. Excuse me. A social psychologist at Unknown University, who had the following to say on the matter. To one who is psychologically unstable, fog represents uncertainty and sensory illusions. When in a state of high stress, one's vision may become obscured or tunneled, as if one is wandering through a dense fog or mist. Societal uncertainty or apprehension about the future manifests as fog, thus blurring the lines between illusion and reality. As time goes on, we are seeing more and more of these cases of the Silent Hill phenomenon. In response, Dr. X calls for a rapid rebuilding of society, as well as a stronger emphasis on counseling and mental health care for the young. I won't lie, asking for a connection for everything and receiving it in the form of this one just kind of saying in a news article and nothing more, nothing less was kind of a letdown. However, I did ask for it. This is something I wanted. I wanted a connection. Unfortunately, it was just with this game. And so in this universe, if you're going through the Silent Hill phenomenon, it's basically if you're depressed or you're in a bad mental state, fog envelops your vision and you can't tell the difference between reality and everything. It almost feels like they created a new mental state. Okay, cool. Fine. Okay, great. In the short message universe, that's what the Silent Hill phenomenon is. I let it go. I let it go as an alternate universe sub-story that nobody should really have any concerns about. I said, you know what? It's fine. I'll let it go. That wasn't until 3 a.m. last night in which Jacob Novak, the founder and CEO of GenVid, the creators of Silent Hill Ascension, he made a tweet, and, I'm just actually going to show you. And that was one thing to follow the Silent Hill Ascension Twitter and kind of just, poke at them and laugh and make some comments, as social media people do and as I do. But once I got blocked, I decided it would be best to follow Jacob Novak and see what he was up to. Come to find out, it's been a laughable adventure of him making tweets begging people to make decisions in the game so that he can test the strengths and weaknesses of systems he's implemented. Almost like a beta test, almost like you're quality testing, almost like you're a play tester. And sure enough, one of his tweets last night, he thanked Tim Sweeney for the MetaHuman system, which isn't part of the Unreal Engine. He explained that he was happy to see this. He was disappointed to see that no one picked the sex scene in Silent Hill Ascension, and decided that after the episode was over, he'd play it anyway so people could understand just how different the storylines were. He was really excited to show everybody this. No one cares, blah, blah, blah. Here is the interesting thing of note. You scroll down entirely on his tweet here, and we're gonna just go in, say show more. All right, show more. There we are. The very last paragraph at the bottom, after all of his personal self-dick grabbing, because he's very happy for himself because his beta test is still going on for whatever reason, and Konami's actually approving this. Anyway, I digress. He says, finally, I want to congratulate Konami on the release of Silent Hill: The Short Message, which is fantastic and also delves more into the Silent Hill phenomenon that we have been exploring in our series. Konami had to set some ground rules, despite the fact that every studio was working on a different version of Silent Hill or what they perceived to be a Silent Hill. It all had to be around a series of guidelines, and this was to keep everything in check, unlike they had done with Hideo Kojima, where they simply said, hey, make a Silent Hill, we got your back, we'll have the money for it. They didn't have the money for it, and it obviously got out of control. This time with the studios, they're running under one single guideline. There probably is 1,000 other rules, I'm sure. But one of these rules seems to follow the plot line of the Silent Hill phenomenon. Or, so I don't have to keep saying phenomenon, we're going to say SHP. Okay, so with the SHP in place, the idea is that no matter what's going on, the reason why it's happening is because any character in the story is now in a great state of distress. And once they're in a great state of distress, the fog comes for them. Now, that being said, how do you apply that to previous iterations of Silent Hill? Because they have not retconned these Silent Hills. They have not said, hey, those Silent Hills never existed. But these new ones coming into play have definitely made it a little more interesting. So, running with this theory, running with this idea, we're going to try to fit the SHP into the plots of the previous versions of Silent Hill. Better yet, every single Silent Hill that's come out, I'm going to plug them in. We're going to see exactly what happens here and see how well it works. And you guys tell me in the comments if this is something that can actually work out, or if SHP is a cheap attempt to wedge previous plot lines in and find a way to tie everything up. By the time I get done theorizing and by the time I get done putting and patching all the pieces together here, I'll decide whether or not I think it's a cheap attempt myself. But we're going to start with every single one in release date order, and we'll go from there. Now, bear in mind, if we're using the SHP as the main central point of the plot line itself, everything else will be secondary. That being said, if we're making everything secondary, it kind of changes the overall plot line to something else entirely if you look at all the other Silent Hills. But here we go. Let's see what happens. In Silent Hill 1, you play the role of a father looking for his daughter. The daughter turns out to be one half of a witch's soul that, once combined, can find a way to summon the god that a cult seems to be following. That's all well and good, but every step of the way on your adventure to find your daughter, your mind continues to travel back and forth between an alternate dimension where everything seems to be rust-colored, ugly, and otherwise grotesque. Okay, the SHP is one of the primary reasons why you can't seemingly just go get your daughter, as it seems to take your mind back and forth because of the duress you're going through looking for your daughter. Fog envelops the world, and you cannot tell the difference between reality and whatever this is. However, it should be noted that the girl that you are chasing, the witch's soul that you are chasing, can manipulate the planes of the Silent Hill world, and can also thus manipulate SHP itself, as once you travel in between places, she can too, and she can also find ways to traverse through the areas. That being said, you still find a way to save your daughter. On the same token, there are a few things of note before we move on. If SHP is to be an integral part of the plotline, then the first thing that needs to be understood is that just because it's in Silent Hill doesn't make Silent Hill the reason why this is happening. Silent Hill started here. This is the first place it was recorded or identified or documented to have happened. This news article implies that people understand outside of the world of Silent Hill that this is a thing. That is something that is crucial. The world now knows about Silent Hill. There is no more mystery to it. There is no more, hey, we're going to a ghost town no one's heard of. Everyone knows about Silent Hill, and everyone knows about the fog events, which means, and when I say everyone, I use that term lightly, or loosely. I don't mean literally everyone knows. What I mean is enough people know that a doctor and scientist outside of Silent Hill has now brought this to people's attention by writing in a newspaper or being interviewed, essentially. So in Silent Hill 1, we got to see what happens when not only the SHP takes over one's mind, but we got to see what happens with the remainder of the people who have other supernatural powers along the way. Are we reaching yet? Are we in reaching territory? Because it's only going to get worse from here. But give me a comment if you have some thoughts on that as well. Let's move on to Silent Hill 2. If the point is you are going through a series of hallucinations based on mental duress and depression and things like that, then James is a poster child for this. The SHP would latch onto him in a heartbeat, and he would hallucinate every last thing happening here. Go into fog lands, disappear in and out, not even understand where he is. It would make perfect sense, and it could all be done within the comfort of his own closet for all we know. However, we can safely assume, because Silent Hill had such a large part to do with his past with Mary, he's probably in Silent Hill. Also, it should be noted that the Maria and Mary and things like that, the Born from a Wish scenario, stuff of that sort, we can assume this might only be real because Silent Hill itself is supernatural on top of the SHP. So you have two factors working together. You have the fact that the SHP is just a manifestation of your brain falling apart, and then Silent Hill itself is a magical conduit by itself on the side. You don't necessarily need one or the other. They both can be creepy as shit. They both can be doing their own things. You know what I mean? So it all depends. It really all depends. But yeah. So let's move on to part 3. So Silent Hill 3 is far more cut and dry due to the fact that part 1, your daughter that you were saving was of magical properties. This is no different. So you're showing up, and even though you have signs of the mental stress needed to activate SHP, you still are of magical properties as well. You still have a cult here, and you are still in Silent Hill. So all these things can coincide with each other at the same time. This also can further reinforce the idea that Silent Hill fans, when they watch Silent Hill games nowadays, they say this is nothing like Silent Hill. Well, that's because we are looking at all 3 of those properties going on at the same time, and we have gotten used to that. If you're going to veer the story's course, if you're going to aim in a different direction, that's all well and good, but you have to change the title if only for that reason. We're looking at Silent Hill games and we're expecting the Silent Hill portion of this new plot line, and you guys are moving on. Konami themselves are moving on to the depression part of it, the mental stability part of it. Fine, if that's what you're going to do, I'm with it. You can do that. Don't stick to the Silent Hill part, and you're only doing it because you're afraid to give it a different title. You're afraid to give a title or a brand new thing to a brand new idea, and I get the fear because no company likes to make risks. However, you've already made 4 risks in the releasing of all these new games plus a movie. So it's done. You've already considered it over with. The risk is over. That being said, you've titled the game after a town that we don't even get to see anymore. Okay, and that's just me being simplistic. You've now built the crux of the position here. Now the crux of the idea is, hey, look, there is now an idea that that SHP will absolutely take your mind and warp you into a world where you don't know what is real and what is not. And I am down with that too. Especially the more messed up your mind is, I'm down for it. Let's do that. Change it to something else, because right now you're hanging on to something that gives the old Silent Hill fans hope. And the new Silent Hill fans are like, what the hell's wrong with this fan base? That's my personal opinion on it. Anyway. So let's move to Silent Hill 4. Okay, see, this is where it starts getting that much easier. Silent Hill 4 is very, very simple. SHP is now an effect that keeps happening, and with a lot of people in the apartment complex themselves. The SHP is very rampant at this point. It's something that people don't really acknowledge still to this day, at this point in time, because it's not something you can necessarily tell people without sounding insane. However, there is a man named Walter Sullivan who is absolutely trying to perform a ritual to bring back his mother. And while he's trying to bring back his mother, he is suffering from the effects of SHP while traversing SHP with seemingly no powers or anything like that. He's traversing SHP and trying to perform this ritual. So he is hindered by SHP, but he's still continuing on because he's trying to bring back his mother. And you happen to be one guy in a string of people that are part of the ritual itself. That's it. It's that short and sweet. Everything else is up to interpretation. Everything else is not even necessarily important. But the SHP theory works here, in my opinion, because it's very simplistic. The story is very simplistic. It's less convoluted, and this is when things start to take that Western spin on things, especially in the plot line. So I'm good with that. And now with Homecoming, you're going to get a very, very simplistic circumstance as well, because now the West has taken over the Silent Hill plotline. I remember myself, and if anyone's ever curious to know what I think about Homecoming or Downpour or anything like that, feel free to ask. But in Homecoming, you follow the story of Alex, and as you're going through the storyline, using the same principles and theory of SHP, or inputting this plug-in, essentially, it's very, very cut and dry. The mental duress he's going through and forgetting what he has done in the end of the story, it's revealed. But while he's following along, trying to figure everything out, you get to see firsthand the effects SHP has in the long run. You get to see what happens with everything, really. And you're looking for information on Silent Hill and its connection, and this is when we start to get a taste for games that aren't connected to Silent Hill directly. So this would be a candidate for SHP. The effects of mental instability has now come into play. You got to relive your life with flashbacks and everything else included, to which you come back at the end and you see the end, or you see the truth, and you get it revealed to you. And even as you get it revealed to you, you're still trapped in that world. There isn't much to it, and rightly so, because in terms of plot, there wasn't much to it. There wasn't a deeper meaning. There wasn't anything. Following the footsteps of Homecoming, it kind of ran on the same properties. Downpour was the same. Downpour was you were confronted with the transgressions you had done. You were suffering from the same mental instability as the characters before. Nothing had changed. If you were running on the SHP theory, then it does not change the plot between the two games at all. And I don't mean like the literal plot, I mean the kind of overall premise. You still suffer from the same things, you still go through the same things, you're still met with the same fate. And that's kind of it. SHP takes hold of Pendleton really hard, really hardcore. So you get a lot of visual imagery, you get a lot of hallucinations and things like that. But in terms of finding out just what could be real and what could not be, you're so left in the dark. But maybe that's for the better. The last two games definitely enforce the SHP theory, which means they definitely kind of leaned on the Western Silent Hills more than they leaned on the Japanese. I can tell you that much. It's almost like they're making these more canon than 1, 2, and 3. Now we go to present day, where Silent Hill Ascension's released. Apparently monsters and things and stuff are everywhere. There's a cult that literally seemingly goes and does the Ghostbusters routine on different places that seem to be corrupted or blighted or whatever you want to call it. And who knows, that cult seems to be a little worse too. However, they're giving names to it now, and they're giving precedent to this. And it seems Jacob Novak has run with the SHP idea full force. And so a lot of people, when they first started, they came in, they said, why is Silent Hill looking this way? Why is it all around the world? Why is this? It's because it isn't Silent Hill. Well, it's the SHP. And none of the fans knew that, and they didn't have the foresight to explain this to them. They waited until the short message came out. What sense did that make? Because now you have a number of different fans that are already tuned out of Ascension. You could have had people on board already if you'd have explained to them from the first. If you had had a narration that said, long ago there was a town called Silent Hill, and since then everything's fucked up. Like anything would have worked. You could have had people on your side, and instead Genvid decided it was a good idea to just open their own game and leave it as is. So you're now left with two decisions after kind of, really running through all of it. And the two decisions are either this Silent Hill SHP phenomenon thing is complete utter bullshit and just got made up on the fly after this game came out, and Jacob Novak is like, yeah, we did that too. That's what we're doing. Or this was planned all along, and it was mismanaged, mishandled, and it absolutely undercuts 1 through 4 just for the sake of trying to make a better game or a game in a series that you think should be made. It's one or the other. My point is this: if you're going to go back and try to add a plot line, another layer over everything, fine, I'm with it. You make sure you do it right and don't be lazy about it. What they've seemingly done now is they've created a precedent for their new version of how they see Silent Hill, and you can do that. Everyone can do that. I recommend you do that. Write in a way that makes it make sense. However, the way they've implemented it and the way they tried to make it make sense has only turned it into it's turned the first 4 games into a joke, while it's kind of bolstered the plot line of the new Silent Hills. And unless you got some absolute bangers, we need to make sure that these Silent Hills that are being produced are actually matching the energy of the first 4. I don't need them to be like The Room. I don't need them to be like 2 or 3. I don't need that. What I need is for it to make sense, and right now it doesn't make sense. So yeah. This video in its entirety has been me connecting all the dots to make sure all the Silent Hills are connected together. They are, through this new theory that they've seemingly put in place. However, does that make it better? No. Not by a long shot. It connects something and answers a question for me, but I can't even confirm nor deny whether or not this is going to be the truthful way everything's going to be connected in that nice, neat bow. SHP has an interesting idea, and I even mentioned this in the 2 videos before. I mentioned it, connecting them all through some sort of virus-like instability, whatever the case may be. I did. And so I'm happy to see that. However, now that I do see that, I realize it's not something that can mesh well. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Is this SHP idea even legitimate? Do you think it holds ground, or do you think it's just something they threw in there, tacked in just to make it all work, and then turns out it actually doesn't work at all? I'm very curious to know what you guys think. Special shout out to my Patreon people. I think I got a button in here that, nope, that's not the button. That's the one. These guys right here, this right there is one of the reasons why I can do what I do. And if you guys are interested, pop over to the description of the video and you'll see the link there. You can click, you can go to my Discord, we can chat it up, bullshit. But if you pop over to Patreon, become a patron for $3 a month, you'll be able to talk to me directly and we can go and hash out these dark theories and conspiracies. In the meantime, I'm getting the fuck out of Dodge. I appreciate every last one of you. Stop that button, damn it, every time. I appreciate every last one of y'all, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Later.